Hello and welcome to another episode of Wise Attraction. I'm your host, Dr. Bibi Babs, and the founder of Wise Attraction, which is a hub of resources for building strong relationships based on Christian values and from a Christian perspective. On today's show, we are dedicating today's show to celebrating mothers and in honor of women all over the world and Mother's Day. And to do that, we have our guest, Mrs. Adebunmi Lambo. She's going to be sharing with us her motherhood journey, the lessons she learned, the sacrifices she made, the successes and the blessings and the rewards of motherhood that she's received along this journey. Mrs. Adebunmi knows firsthand how overwhelming it can be as a stay-at-home mom, the anxiety of homeschooling two children with special needs and the loneliness of taking an unpopular path. However, she also knows the joy of seeing the fruits of her labor blossom, the power of contentment, and the rewards of praying for her children and other people's children. Mrs. Adebunmi now has her own organization, Atlanta House Athenaeum, where she makes functional literature easier to access, supports, and she coaches other people as well. So we're gonna welcome Mrs. Lambo. Sorry, I kept saying Mrs. Adebunmi, but it's Mrs. Lambo. Auntie Bumi, thanks a lot for joining the show.
Thank you, Bibi. It's so wonderful to see you after so many years, Bibi. I'm telling you, it's wonderful to see you blossoming. It's
Thank you.
wonderful to see you flourishing and in your purpose. And thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I'm so glad we have you on today because I believe that on as we're celebrating Mother's Day, as we're celebrating women all over the world, International
Mm.
Women's Day. I just feel like your story is one that needs to be heard on this platform in this season because like their mothers are on different journeys on at different paths at this time, and just hearing the story of someone who is in a place where you're sharing your at the place where you're seeing the benefits of the sacrifices you made. A lot of mothers need to hear that story right now. So I just want to start with getting to know, how did you feel? What was like having your first child when you first became a mother? What was that experience like?
I think for me, Bibi, it was a combination of joy, confusion, and I think I'll say a little bit of sadness. Yeah. So when I got pregnant, we were actually living in America back then. We had just moved. So I got married in December 96, and we moved to America that same December, actually, December 96. I got pregnant like a few weeks after. And the system in America is so different to the system in the UK. You have to have health insurance. So when I got pregnant, we didn't have health insurance, back then. And that meant I had to travel back to the UK for medical attention because I just noticed that something wasn't right. So when I got to the UK, I immediately went to the hospital. And you can imagine my shock when they said, Mrs. Lambo, you're not going back home. We're going to keep you. And that was when they diagnosed me with preeclampsia. At that time, the pregnancy was just 26 weeks at that time. So obviously, the first thing I did was call my husband and say, you know what? I came for medical, treatment like we agreed, but this is what is happening. Long story short, they had to deliver me at 26 weeks. And our daughter weighed 1 pound 12 ounces when I was delivered. When she came, obviously they had prepared our minds that she might not survive, and that if she did, we should get ready that obviously that won't be going on immediately. But she did survive,
Praise God.
yes. And that began the journey of being a mother. You can imagine having your first child in that kind of circumstances. I
Yeah.
was in shock, I was in confusion. I couldn't even celebrate because I was also in pain. It was a cesarean section that I had. My husband had to literally resign, Phoebe. He had to leave his job in America, told his boss that I'm sorry, I have to go back to London, there is an emergency. And that was how I began motherhood. So when
Wow.
I began that journey, I think to kind of, I don't know, because I can remember when I got back home, obviously our daughter was still in the hospital. I had to sit down and reevaluate what motherhood would mean to me in that type of circumstances.
Mm.
And got so good, I was able to come up with three words. And those words were legacy, sacrifice, and love.
Wow. I need to make
And
it.
yeah, and it was from those three words that I continued my journey in motherhood.
Wow. Legacy, sacrifice, and
And
love.
love.
How beautiful. I mean, it takes a lot of strength to come up with those words given your circumstance. So how did you cope? So because I know that you said your husband had to let go of his job and all of that. So
Yes.
it's not just you're not feeling too well because you had a C-section and your baby is premature. It's also if you're also looking at financial challenges. So how did you manage to, should I say, find hope and pull yourself up to the point that you could come up with such powerful words, legacy, sacrifice, and love in such a time?
I would say that was possible because of an experience I had at the age of 11. That was the time when I first gave my life to Christ, Phoebe. And I remember being in the room in Ilorin at that time. I was young, 11 years old, just gave my life to Christ. And I said, God, what do you think of me? And Bibi, right there and then, I heard this voice. Open your Bible to Jeremiah 29:11. No, but I've never heard, people quote that verse so much because the pastor preached about it. No, I heard that verse at the age of 11 directly from God. So when I opened my Bible, lo and behold, I was so shocked and freaked out. I was like, oh my God. And there it was. For I know the thoughts that I have towards you. They're thoughts of good and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. So when I came back home from the hospital, I was able to come up with those words because I reminded myself of the promise that God had made to me at that early age of 11. And I looked up and I said, God, I know this has happened, but I'm going to hold on to this promise that you gave me at the age of 11, Jeremiah 29:11. That in spite of what things look like, I'm still going to hold on to those thoughts. And I said to myself, you know what, God? I am actually going to pass that promise on to my children. And that came the first word, legacy. That my first legacy to my children will be the promises of God. And that promise will be Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the thoughts that I have towards you. They're thoughts of good and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. And the second word came to me because after a few days, BB, the sacrifice began immediately.
Can imagine.
I was at home. So when people have premature babies, they can't really breastfeed. They can't give them bottle. Usually they have this, I'll call it wire, in their, through their nose. It goes through their nose to their throat to their stomach, and that's how they feed them. So what that means was that if, in spite of the way I was feeling, baby, I still had to breast pump. Like I still have to be in that place pumping milk so that my daughter could have, some breast milk. And that was when I said, oh my God, this is so much sacrifice. Is this what it takes to be a mother?
Wow.
And that was how I came up with the second word, sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I had to embrace that word because the word sacrifice is a very heavy word. It's a word that you don't really want to embrace at the early months or early years of your marriage
Yeah.
or at the very early years of being a mother. But it was a word that I had to accept, not just for myself to survive, but for my daughter to survive as well. I had to make all those sacrifices. When I'm at home, and they'll call us sometimes in the middle of the night because everything changes every day. In my situation, they warned us that Mrs. Lambo, you're in for the long run. Things will change. It depends on, on how she's coping. So there'll be nights when we're already sleeping that we'll get a call from the hospital and they will ask myself and my husband to show up immediately
So
because
was she in the hospital? So you guys had to, you were discharged, but
I
she was
was discharged, but
okay.
but our daughter was still in the hospital in the incubator. So there'll be nights that we're already sleeping, and they
Mm.
will call us to to come immediately because usually if they want to turn off the ventilator in the hospital, they usually want the parents to be around to at least pray over the baby before they actually switch it off. So there are nights that we got those call, and we had to get up and go to the hospital. And then after a while, when she had to go through surgery because she developed a condition called neck, and they had to go in, and the surgery was not fully successful because they couldn't complete the surgery. So they had to bring her out of the operating room with a bag, and they covered her with like a cellophane paper. So at that point, they actually gave us a room in the hospital so that we stop going back and forth, if they just need to turn off the ventilator. So I had to embrace that word, maybe the word sacrifice. And then I had to embrace the word love because it takes love to sacrifice. The Bible already said it that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have eternal life. So I knew that it was going to take so much love from me as a mother to make that sacrifice a reality. And that was how I came up with those three words: legacy, love, and sacrifice.
Those words, I feel like they really embody what it means to be a mother. I mean, I feel like even with mothers that go on to full term, have a
Yeah,
smooth birth, it's still challenging, not to talk of
it is.
when things don't go as planned or as expected. It can even take even more from the mother. So I want to know, so from the point where you had your baby and all of that. First of all, I have to even recognize that it must have been really challenging not being able to take your baby home immediately and all of that. So I don't know. It must have been a really challenging time for you. I acknowledge that. So what about the time from that time and when you found out that your baby had special needs? How did that happen?
Okay, so premature babies, especially when they're that preemie and the weight is low, they had to, because she had to go through surgery as well. She had a medical condition. The lungs are not fully developed. Most of their organs are not fully developed anyway if you have a premature baby. So the doctors always tell you that, one way or the other, this child, even if she makes it, she's going to end up having some special needs because she was preemie. So when they discharged, she spent 5 months in the hospital. So she was born in July. We went home in December. So when they gave her to us in December, this was December 31st. I cannot forget. That was our New Year's present. The doctor said to us, we're giving this baby to you because we don't know what else to do. So this is the time that your God must take over.
Wow.
And the reason they said that was because we had some battles with them in the hospital. And through that battle, they realized that we're Christian, that we just don't make decisions without consulting God. So they said, it's time for your God to take over. And they told us, don't expect a miracle. This is what to expect. And that was how the journey began, having a special needs baby. And I just took it from there.
Wow. What an introduction to motherhood.
It was quite an introduction to motherhood, Phoebe.
Yeah. So, I know you said that you found a lot of strength from your faith and God speaking to you and coming up with these three words: love, sacrifice, and legacy. But
Yes.
how did you then cope going forward in terms of having to, because I know that there must have been lots of crying, you had to be full-time carer for your child. So what gave you that strength to carry on?
Okay, so fast forward to 4.5 years later, we had another daughter, and she came preemie as well,
Wow.
weighing 2 pounds one,
How many weeks was she?
28 weeks. She was 28 weeks, and she spent some time in the hospital as well. But long story short, 8 months after our second daughter was born, my husband and I decided to relocate back to America. Because bear in mind that we had tried it the first time, but because of the situation, I had to go back to London. But my husband still had his dream of relocating to America. So 8 months after our second daughter was born, we relocated to Atlanta. We moved to America. When we got to America, it was a different ball game. And the way I can explain that is when we were in the UK, bear in mind that the UK is a social system. We had NHS. You don't have to pay for medical.
Yeah.
The the school that our first daughter was going to at that time, they understood special needs. So they gave her what they call back then a nursery nurse. So she had her own nursery nurse attending to her, giving her medication, just really taking care of her. When we moved to America, all that was taken away. We enrolled her in a private school, and things didn't go well. So, and the way we realized that things were not going well was we were often um, in the hospital, Atlanta's Children's Hospital. I mean, like once a week we were back. Her breathing started deteriorating because bear in mind that even at that time, she was still on, she would wheeze, they call it wheezing. She was still wheezing sometimes. So this was really getting a lot more. And then the last straw was when she started bedwetting again at the age of 5. That was when we knew that um, something was not right. So I called my aunt. This aunt of mine, she's a doctor, a pediatrician, and she's been living in America way before me. So I called her and I explained everything to her. And then she said to me, Bumi, you have to stop crying. It's time for you to do what's practical. And I said, Auntie, what's practical? She said, take her out of school and start homeschooling. Bibi, I have never heard the word homeschooling in my life. Coming from the UK, never. So I said to my auntie, what's homeschooling? And then, in fact, I remember that conversation, just like you said, that a lot of crying. She said, go and calm yourself down. And then, you calm down, call me back. So I calmed down and then I called her back. And then she explained to me what homeschooling is. And she said to me, Bumi, this is the best option. This is the way forward that I see for you in this situation. So I called my husband. I said, spoken to my auntie. She mentioned this word homeschooling. And she said, this is the best option for us. My husband was working back then because bear in mind that when we relocated, it was a work visa that brought us back to America. So he went to work and said to his colleague, "What is homeschooling?" And his colleague said, "Oh my God, you don't know what homeschooling is? That's what we all do." So they
Wow.
now told, yes. So they now told my husband, "That's what we all do. We all homeschool our children. We will never put our children in American public school or even in a private school. That our wives stay home and homeschool." And so when my husband got back home, I guess because of the fact that his colleagues were they gave him that kind of, should I say, comfort or affirmation that yes, it's not something weird, it's something that we all do. So when he came back home, he agreed. He said, Bumi, I spoke to all my colleagues, they all homeschool. One of them even said that he's. willing to help. So are you ready for this? Around that time, Bibi, I was waiting for my work authorization so that I can start working as well. And that was when all those dreams of I'm going to go out to start working, I'm
Mm.
going to start a business, I'm going to do this, it all flew out of the window
Wow.
when I realized that, oh my God, it's another time for a different type of sacrifice. Not only will I be a mother, I will also be a teacher and a carer because at this time we had also started therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy. And I just said, there's no way I can cope with that. And my husband kind of agreed. So the moment we made that decision that I was going to stay home and look after the girls, not just look after them, but also homeschool them. We also had to start making financial sacrifices, baby. I won't forget. Got so good around that time. Bank of America had approved a mortgage. I can't forget all these stories, baby, of $360,000 for us to buy our property. When we made the decision to start homeschooling, to be a one income family, I said to my husband, thank God that you have not signed the dotted line. Because if we are going to be a one income family, we have to cut our coats according to our size. This $360,000 that they've approved for a mortgage is not going to work at all. It's going to be a lot of burden on you. And that was how God saved us.
Wow.
That we had not turned in that we had not signed that mortgage, it wasn't approved. We just said, okay, we can't do this. So we had to start making a lot of financial sacrifices, a lot of financial readjustments on our part because we felt like if you want to raise these children in love and you want to leave a legacy behind, you cannot afford to spend without a budget,
Yeah.
without a financial plan that will sustain you, a sustainable financial plan. And that was another sacrifice that we had to make. The house we were looking at that time was in Norcross. So we just, okay, this is not going to work. So we started looking in another area that properties was a bit more affordable. And that's what we went for.
Wow. So I just want so in terms of homeschooling, obviously when the idea was brought to you, you had absolutely you didn't even know what it was to start.
No.
How did you educate yourself to be able to do it? Because I believe for me, honestly, I've heard a lot about homeschooling. I think about it, but I'm just like, not for me because I don't even have the knowledge. Like you, I'm so clueless. So just to think, and for you, I feel like it's almost like you had no choice
I
because
had no choice.
others they can say, okay, if I feel like I'm not able to homeschool, then I can take my child to school. But for you,
Yeah.
you were just put in that situation. How were you able to gather all the information and gain the confidence that you needed to teach your children?
Okay, so because I had no choice, baby, I also had no choice but to learn all those things. So the first thing my auntie did was introduce me to a curriculum. And she said, okay, Bumi, just start from there. Start with this curriculum. And I went online. The curriculum was actually online. I bought the curriculum. I sat down with it. Oh my goodness. I called those people like nearly 5 times a day, BB. Like, what is this? What is that? Can somebody please explain to me?
Mm.
And I just took it one day at a time. I followed that curriculum every day until I felt like that curriculum was not working for me anymore. And the reason I came to that stage was maybe it was so time consuming to do everything because I wasn't just homeschooling. I was also trying because with children with special needs, you not only have to homeschool, you have to teach them life skills because some of the skills that comes naturally to other kids doesn't come naturally to them. With kids on the spectrum, bear in mind that we were doing speech therapy at that time as well. So I had to teach myself, first of all, using the curriculum. And when the curriculum was no longer working, I had to sit down and start trusting God for wisdom, for knowledge on how to supplement that curriculum with, just to tailor it to my needs, to save time, money, and energy. So what I did was I actually started writing my own curriculum. I'll look at the curriculum, yeah. I'll look at the curriculum that was in front of me, and then I'll ask myself, how can I mend this curriculum to meet the needs of my child?
Mm.
And what was easy for me to do was literacy because I was very strong I love stories. I've always written all these stories since I was a child. So I said, okay, how can I begin to amend this curriculum to meet the needs of both of our daughters? So I actually just zeroed in on literacy. And I said, literacy, you will not only teach my daughter to read, and write. You will also teach her the skills that she needs. Because I can't finish teaching literacy, math, science, social studies.
Mm.
And now I'm looking out again for other things, for to teach social skills because she needed a lot of social skills around that time. She needed communication skills, all of these life skills, even as a child, she needed it. And I'm like, it was just so time consuming, educating both of them and now looking for all these extra things. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to find a way. And that was what I did. I started combining curriculums together to meet our needs, as a family and to meet their needs especially.
Wow, that's so enterprising of you to then go beyond what you were handed. I mean, at the beginning, when you started, you didn't even know what homeschooling was, and here you
Yeah,
are writing a curriculum that
yeah.
suits your needs. I mean, that's so amazing. That's the power of motherhood because
It
we
is.
you just take whatever situation you have and you keep going.
You keep going, yes.
So that's really inspiring. So do you want to tell us a bit about the should I say the testimonies and the achievements that you've had so far along this journey and along this process of motherhood? Because I'm conscious that now you're beginning to see the fruits of your labor. Before we went live, you told me that one of your kids has recently graduated and the other one is in her second year, and you
Yeah.
put in all of this effort for years in them. So can you tell us a bit about that journey?
Yeah. So, Bibi, I think for me, that journey, I will start with the word patience. Because when you're raising children with special needs, you have to be very patient with yourself. You have to be very patient with them as well. And you have to be patient perhaps with God, you know. You have to, give God that time to do what He says He will do. It didn't happen overnight, you know. So I had to be very patient. But after a while, I think I actually started seeing the results with our first daughter when she got to ninth grade. It was actually when she got to ninth grade that we could make a decision that, okay, you're ready to step out of this home. And what we did was we enrolled her in what they call hybrid school in America. Hybrid school is like a situation where homeschool kids have an opportunity to go out to school. It's like a private school, but they only go there like twice a week or some 3 days a week, and then they take lessons there. So for me, when she got to ninth grade, her communication skills was now better. I knew that, I was a bit more confident that if she was bullied, if there was anything going on, that she'll be able to come back home and communicate that, oh, mommy, daddy, this is what is going on.
Yeah.
And then by that time, I had already trained her in so many things like body language, how to be safe, because these are things that, like I said, other kids will pick it up naturally, but with children on the spectrum, you just have to teach it. So by that time, I was confident that, okay, you know when you're not safe. You know if somebody touches you, inappropriately. You'll be able to come home and tell us. If somebody bullies you, you'll be able to come home and tell us. So it was actually at that point that I gained that we had the confidence that, okay, now you can step out. That was the first time I started seeing the fruits of all our labors. That, oh, finally, this girl can step out, and I can be somewhat confident that, okay, we can handle this, especially in a very small environment. Because hybrid school is usually a small environment, it's usually for homeschool kids anyway. So that was the first time. So we tried the hybrid school, and it really worked out. The principal, obviously we had to kind of sit down with them because I think around that time she was still on some medications that, I needed someone to keep an eye out, so that she doesn't miss any of her medication, at that time. So the principal was very nice. Oh my goodness, all the teachers, they were very supportive. It was a very supportive environment. So that was the first time. And then as time went on, we actually started observing her thriving in that environment. She was doing well. She could, at that point, she was already reading well because I took it. She was not behind, you understand? So she could actually cope in the exact grade that she was supposed to be. And then for our youngest daughter as well, she was able to cope as well because by this time, oh my goodness, I had already received healing for her after 7 years. Oh, baby, after 7 years of being on steroids, I had a vision, and in that vision, God told me specifically to go and buy this oil, cumin oil. I've never heard the name of that oil before. And when God said, go and look for an oil called cumin oil and start using it for your daughter. I went and I recited. I said, "Oh my goodness, there is a oil called cumin oil." That was how I got introduced to cumin oil, and we bought it, and I started using it for her at the age of 7. After 7 years of steroids, sleeplessness, medications, different things, And they all just started clearing out her skin. I would give her like half a teaspoon as well, so they're helping with her breathing because then she was actually on EpiPen. EpiPen is like this injection that you quickly give them before they pass out. So I
Wow.
always had to carry EpiPen with me. But by that time, she had received her healing. So when she saw our older sister going to the hybrid school,
Mm.
she said she wanted to go as well. And then when she got there, because she was on a special diet, there was no special diet for her. So I'm like, you are not ready. But finally, when she was ready as well, I started seeing the fruit of her labor. She could read. They could keep up with their classwork. They could keep up with everything. That was the first fruit that we saw. And then the second one was, baby, anywhere the girls were, when we go there to pick them up, they will come to me and say, are you this girl's mother? And I'll say, yes, I am. And they will go, we've never seen a well behaved child
Wow.
as your daughter. So that was quite encouraging that anywhere we take them, we would get this feedback that the children were well behaved. And then before I knew it, other parents started approaching me. That how did you do it? You know, we can tell that, to some extent that, this girl is special needs, but she can read, she can do everything. How did you do it? And that was another way of seeing the reward, the fruits of my labor, when people give you feedback that you've done a good job
Yeah.
and you are now in a position when you can start helping others in a similar situation.
Wow, very, very inspiring story. I'm just so blessed by how you were able to make the most of that situation. I could, like you were saying, you were crying to your auntie and she just told you, stop crying. This is what to do. And you took action. Because sometimes it's very easy to, because there are some situations that you can't change, it's so difficult when you can't change it. You feel like you're in this place, and you're praying and asking God continuously, and every morning you wake up and it's like that. Because so how did that affect your relationship with God? Because trials affect our relationship with God. Sometimes you be like, God, where are you? I mean, I called you, I asked you, I've been asking you, I'm still in this place. So how did it affect your relationship with God?
Bibi, it definitely did. I would be lying to you that if I say it did not. It affected my faith, my walk with God. There was a time that for a period of years, I wasn't reading my Bible. I just got tired, so tired. And then there was a time that I just told my husband, I don't want to go to church anymore. Can you just give me some time? Because I think at that point, it wasn't, I feel like it wasn't just maybe it was my faith. I think I was also mentally, physically, and emotionally tired of going through the drill every single day. So my husband did give me the time, he continued going to church. He would take the girls. He said to me that as long as you don't influence the girls with the way you're feeling. And I said, God forbid. This is my journey. It's not for me to try and persuade my children to feel the same way as me. So I think for a few months, I actually stayed back home when they went to church, you know, and I stayed back home really to sleep, baby. I was just so tired. Yeah. And then, yeah, I'm telling you, I was so tired, baby. Yeah. And then after a while, thank God for our mutual friend,
Mm,
Faith.
okay.
Yes. A couple of times, Faith actually had to fly in from London. Actually, Faith flew in about 3 times to take care of me, around this. around this period because I actually got sick as well. I was in the hospital on and off. So actually, so Faith flew in. So when she flew in, she wasn't just taking care of me physically. She was also trying to encourage me, just to say, Bumi, you've come a long way. You can't give up on God now. You can't give up on yourself. And you can't give up on your family. So
Mhm.
I would say that how I coped with that was having a good friend in my corner. Oh my goodness, Bibi. There's nothing as a mother, there's nothing like having God and a supportive system around you. People that loves you, people that cares about you, people that wants the best for you. So Faith was one of those people. Imagine flying in all the way from London, not once, not twice, but three times.
Wow.
And then I have my husband as well, just trying to encourage me, Bumi, you can't give up on your faith, you can't give up on God. I know it's been challenging. And then there was this other friend, actually two other friends of mine, Debbie and another elderly woman, Miss Pauline. She's passed now, They will come over, wash the plates, clean my house. And throughout that time, they would also just sit down and read the Bible. Literally, they would they'll just sit down there reading the Bible to me while I was just laying down on the chair, And then when they're done, they'll pray with me and they'll leave. And slowly but surely, as they're recovering, getting my faith back, getting back on my feet, and just restoring my relationship with God.
Well, praise God for family. Because sometimes when our faith can be tested in situations, and thank God that there were people around you to lift you
Yes.
at
Yep.
the time. Yeah. So I
Yes.
want to know a bit about yourself in terms of your career. So you said that before you went back to work, you were going to go back to work, and then of course you had your babies. It became apparent that you had to let go of work, let go of everything, and just give them literally years of your life. So how what career were you doing before that time?
So before then, I was a welfare officer in Suddock School in London. And
Okay.
before then, I was a family support worker. So I'll say I was in social work before then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in terms of work, career-wise, and all of that, how were you able to deal with the fact that you had to pack that? So, what gave you the confidence, and how did you? Because now I know you now own your own organization, Atlanta House Athenaeum. So just tell me the journey about in terms of career wise, how were
Hmm.
you able to pack that, and how did you then what brought you to this point of starting of the Atlanta House Athenaeum? What gave you the inspiration?
Okay, so career-wise, Bibi, with my two kids with special needs, everything and anything to do with career flew out of my mind.
Wow.
I wasn't even thinking about it anymore because I'm like, I didn't even give it a thought, baby.
Wow.
Because I'm like, oh my God, these are my children. How can you walk when you're so afraid that you may just wake up? Anything can happen when you go for that next appointment and your child may not come back home with you. And I feel like everything else will just really fly out of the window. For real. How can you even cope when you're in the hospital with going through a blood transfusion and all of that? I wasn't thinking of career, people. The only thing I was thinking of really was the survival of my children. But luckily for me, when I was doing this, other parents within the community just started noticing, like when we go to the library, they will come to me and say, oh, what are you doing? And I say, oh, I'm here with my children, I'm homeschooling. oh, really? Why are you homeschooling? Then I'll just kind of tell them that, yeah, my kids needs me and all that. And then they'll say, oh, I would like to do the same thing. Or, oh, I have a friend with a child with special needs. Can I have your number so that I can give them your number? And before I knew it, baby, people started calling me. And before I knew it, I started this same organization, but it was so this is a private one, but I started a 501c3. I actually registered a charity organization back then where I could get mostly books and curriculum to
Okay.
kind of support other parents because I just couldn't support them all. And then I started giving out scholarships. Like
Wow.
when these companies would come and give me money, when anybody calls and say, oh, they need tuition for their kids, they're homeschooling, I would give it, and then I would also give book scholarship. So that was how all that started. Just me helping other mothers and just doing my thing. So by the time our first daughter now graduated high school and she went to college. I thought to myself, maybe it's time for me to step out. But I realized that it wasn't time. Our youngest daughter actually still needed me as well. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it more time. So I gave it more time. And then when she graduated high school, I'm like, okay, what's next? I started looking for a job. I got a job. So our youngest daughter graduated in May. I got a job in December as a case manager working with foster kids. And then in August, the following year, August of last year, come COVID, everything, I lost that job. So when I lost that job, I said to myself, what do I do now? And the first thing that God asked me was that, what do you have? And I thought to myself, what do you have? Initially I couldn't understand that question. And so finally I realized that, oh my goodness, you start with what you have and where you are. And I realized that what I have was loads and loads of books, Bibi. I've been homeschooled for so long, for about 17 years. I had so many books in my garage. Our garage is actually a library. And God said, turn it into a library. So all the kids that had worked within the community, Ayana, Ruby, all of them. I just called them and I said, okay, guys, I need your help. They call me Miss Boomy. I'm like, Miss Boomy needs your help. Miss Boomy, what do you need? I said, can you just come and catalog all these books and arrange them alphabetically for me? And all the girls did that. And then I found a platform where I could actually put all the books online. And I put all the books online. And that was how Atlanta House Athenaeum was born. It started as a library by God asking me, what do you have? And me answering that question. I have lots of books. And it became a library. And bear in mind that before then, I was already giving out curriculum anyway for as scholarships that when the kids finishes using that curriculum at the end of the year, they'll return it to me and then I'll give another family. So it was easy to do that. I just decided, okay, this time around, I'm going to turn it into a business. And right now we have about 5 members. Yeah. And then the next thing God said, what else do you have? And I realized, oh my God, I've got years of experience. And I've used this experience to help people in the past. And my therapist said, Fumi, you got so much experience. But not only that, you have compassion because you've experienced this. And I'm also a certified health coach anyway. Why don't you start coaching? And that was how I started coaching. And the next thing I told God I have is the ability to write. So I started writing curriculum, a literacy curriculum for specifically for special needs children. And that was how, I started the organization. And I'm still moving forward.
Wow, your story, honestly, like I'm even fighting back tears because as as I hear your story, as I look at you, I see a very strong woman that just keeps going. It's just amazing how you go through all of this, be out of work for so many years, you come out, you get a job, that job is taken from you, and then you look around you, albeit by the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, find what you have and keep going. It's so beautiful to see the strength that is inside of you. And I really appreciate your sharing your story with us today, because other
Thank you.
mothers listening, they might not, it might not be special needs, it might be something else that's just holding that mother back in one position. But you went through all of this for years, and look at you, your first child is a graduate, and your
Yes,
yeah, and your second child is on her way there, and you've started your business. It's like you're working in your passion, and it's so beautiful to see.
it
So
is. It is, Bibi. It's I think it's Joyce Meyer that says your test always becomes your testimony. And I think I've experienced that firsthand. And I also feel like our calling and our purpose is not that far from what we have experienced. It's really telling our story, the story of how we overcome, the story of what God has, taken us through, and looking at that story and asking yourself, how can I use this story to bless others? And how can sharing this story also bless me financially in return? Because at the end of the day, we still have to survive, we still have to put food on the table. So that's exactly what I guess we all have to do. At the end of the day, look at our story, look at what we have to offer, and ask God, where do I start? Just give me the wisdom. How do I keep moving forward with this story to bless others and also to bless yourself?
well, thank you so much. I was going to ask you for any final words of encouragement going through for someone, but you've literally given us that encouragement that wherever you are, how can you use that to bless yourself and to bless
And
others?
to bless others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your situation can be your calling and your purpose
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
Well,
The situation definitely, baby. I realize that it's not usually far off. Like it's what you have to offer at the end of the day that you're positioned to give. And when you give what you have to offer, not just what you went to school to learn, you give it with compassion, you give it with love because you've been there, because you understand. And I think that's what people receive, that you've been there, you've lived it. You just didn't go to college to get a degree in it or the master's in it. You lived it. You can understand where we are. Yes. So to any mother struggling with anything out there, just know that I think it's Pastor Ashimolowo that makes one statement. It's not over until it's over. Believe I know that firsthand, Bibi. It's not over, Bibi, until it's over. Because when I go at the times that we would go to that hospital, I would say, as long as there is this breath in this child, guess what, Bibi? It wasn't over. When I see them wake up every morning and they're still walking, talking, singing, they're not dead, I say to myself, it's still not over. So when there is life, there is always hope. And it's never over until God says, okay, it's time for you to return home. But for as long as God keeps you here on earth, it's because it's not over with you yet. So I would like to encourage young mothers with that it's not over. Whatever the situation is, as long as you have breath, God is still with you. and He will make everything beautiful in His time. It's just a matter of time, baby. And like I said, I learned to be patient with God. And I pray that God will give us all that patience as mothers and as wives.
Amen. Amen. Wow. Thank you so much, Auntie Bumi. Your story is very inspirational. I'm just gonna say hello to those commenting. Ale is saying hi, Bibs. Hi, Ale. Thanks for joining us today. Mrs. Lafunki is saying good evening, baby. Good evening, Mrs. Lafunki. Thank you for joining us. And
Thank you.
um, Auntie Taye Makanjola is saying very inspirational story. Very strong, ma. That is true. The story is so inspirational. You've been so strong. I mean, it's just like from your story that you've shared today, it gives young mothers an opportunity to see the whole trajectory. Because when you have your child, if it's a special needs child, of course it'll take a bit more from you, but having a child does take from you that love, that sacrifice, that legacy
Legacy.
applies to everybody. So just hearing your story from that point at the beginning and coming all the way to this point now where your first child has graduated, your second child is on her way, you're earning from the skills you learned while on that journey of being a mother, even if you had to take time out, is such an inspiring story. And hearing that, even if it was so difficult, there were times where you were down, but you picked yourself up. I mean, for me, it's just so amazing seeing that you're now running your own business. You never gave up. I mean, even the Bible says it like the righteous, you might fall down 7 times. It's like
So
you fell down 7 times, but you're still standing.
it
And
is true.
that's so beautiful to see. That's great encouragement to every mother out there. So, every mom watching out there, be encouraged. Motherhood is a journey of
To,
challenges, successes, joys,
yeah,
tears, everything.
it
Yeah,
is.
but we can learn from Auntie Bumi's story today. And like she said, it's only a matter of time.
It's only a matter of time. Yeah. Thank
Thank,
you so much, baby.
thank
It is
you.
so beautiful being here with you. It's a joy, baby. I cannot tell you enough. And the reason why it's a joy seeing you is because the last time I saw you, like I said, you were still young. You were single. You were not a mother then. I
Yeah.
just knew you as this small. But look at you today, baby. God has done marvelous and wonderful things in your life. Not just that you're a wife, you are not a mother, but you are now in your purpose, which I always feel like is the most important thing in life for us to be in our purpose. And it's such a joy to see how far you've come, how much God has done in your life, Vicky. It gives me so much joy.
Oh, thank you so much, Auntie. I really appreciate it. And thanks to all the viewers for today's show. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for liking. Please feel free to share this episode if you feel like there are young mothers in your space or any mother going through a rough time and they need to hear how another mother has overcome and has conquered. Feel free to share this show with them. And also, please do subscribe to the Wise Attraction YouTube channel if you have not. And also, Auntie Bumi's business, Atlanta House Athenium, they actually have a Facebook page. And I think, Auntie, you have a podcast as well.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so please tell us so you can please find them on Facebook, Atlanta House Athenium, and there's a podcast. Please tell us a bit about the podcast.
Okay, so the podcast was something that I started just to encourage young mothers, as well, just to share my story. Everything is available on my website, atlantahouseathenium.com. Just find your way there. And the Facebook link is there as well.
Okay, so I'll just share the name of the website, Atlanta House Athenium.
.com. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to share the link to the website after the show. Thank
That.
you for watching
Thank
and see
you.
you same time next week on
Thank
Wise
you.
Attraction. Bye.
Bye.